Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video I want to give you guys 5 exciting reasons why you should play Classic World of Warcraft that's actually coming out this summer. So in about, give or take, 6 months from now. Maybe you've given BFA a good old-fashioned try, but it's at a point 6 months from now where you're going to be like, you know what? I'm excited for something new, a new chapter in my life. So the best way to move forward is to actually go back to vanilla World of Warcraft with Classic WoW getting released this summer in 2019. And there's a lot of reasons why you should give yourself a chance, whether you did play way back in the day and it's a reason to revisit, or if you've never played, and here are the reasons why you should. Number 1. Class creation and builds, and the different design philosophy that they had back in vanilla WoW. By they, I mean Blizzard and the developers who worked on the classes. Right now in Battle for Azeroth, every class has a spec, and each spec specializes in a certain part. While Battle for Azeroth is more spec-oriented, Classic WoW was more class-oriented. Of course, everybody had a cookie-cutter build way back in the day to help you create the Marksman Hunter or Beastmaster Hunter with the very same passives you used to have. But the game doesn't force you to play a specific spec. It lets you really craft one, letting you utilize all the passives as well as active abilities from 3 different spec talent rows. So the game never really came with a spec for you to choose from. You were really a hunter, a priest, or a rogue, and you picked different passives and active abilities from different talent trees in order to craft yourself the build that you want to play with. Let's say you decided that you want to play a rogue, but you want to be more a PvP focused rogue. The subtlety tree is going to have talents as well as passives that would help you do better in PvP. So you would go to the subtlety tree to get the talents you need in order to help you deal with other players. Let's say you decided the weapon choice for your rogue isn't going to be swords, axes, or maces, but rather daggers. So you decide to sink a couple points into the Assassination talent row in order to pick up a few talents in order to have big explosive crits when dispatching your enemies. Let's say you decided to go in a whole nother direction. You actually prefer to use swords. You want to have 2 awesome sabers in each of your hands. That means as a rogue you'll want to spec yourself into the combat talent tree, picking up talents that helps you improve your sword swings, maybe even improve the hit chance with both of your weapons, making sure that all of your strikes are accurate and deadly. Having this kind of freedom in customization, even if there is going to be, in the end, a cookie-cutter build for certain playstyles, that freedom is what players love and remember from vanilla WoW. It gives you a more comprehensive options rather than the Battle for Azeroth talent tree we have right now, which give you 3 options in every single row. And you can make some builds in BFA, but in vanilla WoW it's a little bit more focused, a little bit more intricate, and more accurate. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have heard the stories of World of Warcraft being a game that's very specific. For example, if you were a shaman, you had to be a healer. If you were a warrior, you had to be a tank. If you were a paladin, you have to be a healer. And if you were a mage, then you were the best ranged DPS. So there's almost no reason to play a warlock, shaman, or boomkin. So I understand that a lot of people would look at Classic WoW and think that, well, what if I want to play a class that I want to play? What if I want to play a spec that I want to play? The game gives you the customization of building your character and your class the way you want to, but there's always that fear in the back of your mind, what if I don't get invited to raids because I'm not playing the most meta build? What if I'm playing something I enjoy rather than something that is performing at its top notch? I guess it's a good idea that a raid way back in the day for WoW allowed up to 40 people to get together and raid. In a 40-man group, you have a couple tanks, couple healers, couple dedicated DPS, but a lot of people report from back in the day there was always room for people with experimental builds or maybe they played hybrid classes, hybrid specs. Of course, something like a mage was probably the best ranged DPS, but boomkins, elemental shamans, warlocks, all had different abilities that weren't quite as DPS heavy, but they offered other things that their team could benefit from. So I know a lot of people are going to come into Classic WoW thinking that there's going to be a very strict and rigid approach to the whole playstyle of what the game was like. But trust me, I think if you go in with a creative mind in hand, I believe that you'll still be able to explore a good portion of the endgame content, even if you choose to play the game the way you want to play it. Another thing Classic WoW has is the abundance of unique features and or spells that are simply iconic to World of Warcraft classes. Very similar to how Outlaw rogues in Battle for Azeroth have an interesting ability of Grapple Hook. It is unique to a rogue spec and it is specific to that spec. It gives me a lot of versatility when moving around the battlefield or simply exploring the world. But it's not a unique ability completely in its own. There's a lot of classes with similar abilities, like Heroic Leap for Warriors for example. It's probably the closest in comparison. But way back in the day, for Vanilla WoW, uniqueness was part of the gameplay and part of experience of playing a certain class. For example, Hunters, a class that tames a pet to help it fight in combat, had a unique ability where they would use Eyes of the Beast to allow them to take control of that pet. Whether you wanted to use that pet to scout out enemy areas before you go questing, scout out Alliance or Horde fortifications before attacking with your team, or simply grief players by engaging in PvP, letting your pet do all the work while you sit from range, is something that a lot of people could take advantage of from back in the day. It was something unique about this class. Another unique ability that is brought up a lot in a lot of videos is the Warlock Ritual of Doom. It takes 5 Warlocks to channel a portal to try to summon a demon, where in one of those Warlocks is going to be sacrificed and a Doomguard is going to spawn in his place. A powerful demon that a Warlock can tame in order to wreak havoc on his enemies. These abilities have very much a roleplay-ish value. Some people enjoy stuff like this, but I like the absolute uniqueness. If you want to continue the topic of uniqueness, we can just get on to a topic of class abilities and how certain classes had to go through quests in order to unlock these same class abilities. Did you want to learn the aquatic form for your druid? You had to do a class quest that took you all over the place. Do you want to learn defensive stance as a warrior? You had to do a unique class to unlock that spell. You wanted to learn how to tame pets? You had to tame 3 types of pets in order to unlock the class spell. The way you unlock all of these class abilities were also unique, so when you're questing as a warrior through the game, unlocking all your abilities as you go, or if you're a mage, unlocking all your abilities as you level to level 60, your experience as a mage is going to be drastically different compared to that of a warrior. If you want an experience that is entirely your own with the class that you like, I think Vanilla WoW is going to have plenty of those. And I think it creates a little bit more replayability to the game, as when you level a Warlock, it is not going to be exactly the same experience as when you level a Rogue. Another thing we could talk about that has been a concern in the past, that Vanilla World of Warcraft has been around since forever. People are going to burn through the content fairly quickly. We already know what the raids are like, we know what the dungeons are like, we have all the mechanics detailed in websites like Wowhead. So there's not going to be a lot to imagination. A lot of the stuff we know about Vanilla WoW is already been known. But the thing is, this game has insane replayability. I mean, the fact alone that people have been playing Vanilla World of Warcraft since it has gotten released way back in the day and continue to play Vanilla World of Warcraft because it is vanilla on things like private servers, for example, the fact that people are still playing this game to this day should show to you that it does have longevity with the community. The reason it has such high replayability is simply by the way that the game was structured in terms of its content. Dungeons, for example, you had to get a group together in your city in order to get a dungeon group going. Dungeons lasted far longer than they do right now, and a lot of people describe them as being fun on the way. The experience of that dungeon, the way that classes work together to defeat mobs and bosses, is the fun of the game, rather than like the end reward for the loot that you get. When your class is fun and the dungeon is fun, the game has its own replayability in the content. Moving on to raids. Raids that take epic amounts of people, 40 people, to slay the dragon at the end of the run. A lot of people describe the raid itself, the fact that you have to take 40 people to cooperate together, that experience alone, besides the gear drops of course, but most of the experience is enough to get people to continue playing the game. And we can't forget about PvP. When you have rogues ganking around Alliance or Horde forces in any of the cities, you gank one player, they get a friend to help, you get a friend to help, and shortly but surely you have an all-out faction war in a random zone somewhere in the leveling area of a game. is the aspects of the game and the way that you play with other players that gave replayability. It is the fun that people had doing the experience rather than the actual rewards at the end of the experience. The reward was the experience, the reward was playing, the reward was the fun. And finally, a lot of people talk about the community aspect and community emphasis in World of Warcraft. These communities continued on and on private servers ever since World of Warcraft moved into TBC and into future expansions, but the community aspect of what Vanilla WoW was never left any of the private servers. Some people describe that it's because of the framework of how you had to interact with players, how the game was designed from the ground up, how you leveled, geared, and built your character that allowed the community emphasis to exist. It can be the small things like having to go into town to look for people to do a dungeon with. You couldn't just go on LFG and find people in different servers. You actually had to make a character travel all the way back, around a group, travel together as a gang, all the way to the dungeon, get inside of the dungeon, make your way through it, dally up the gear as you needed. A lot of it is the interactions that you get on a very local level. The best way to describe it is the retail World of Warcraft is a lot more global. You're comparing players against other players on servers, and even players with regions versus regions. It's far more global as we are a lot more connected, but also in a sense we're kind of disconnected. Vanilla World of Warcraft was more on a local level, more on server level. Guilds were competing with other guilds on the same server. You had faction wars of Alliance and Horde of those factions on a specific server. You can make friends with people on that server. You can make your own name for that server, not for all the servers, but for the one you're on. You can even make adversaries in the opposite faction on your server. I feel like because the game was focused on a more small scale, everything from the guilds to the people you know to the experiences you have were on a particular server within factions, within guilds. You didn't have as many people transferring over all over the place. It made the feeling more genuine and in some cases more intimate. And that is one of the biggest qualities that a lot of people contribute to Vanilla WoW, how the game's social community emphasis was. Not saying it wasn't toxic in some cases, not saying that people didn't ninja loot, but the overall social structure is what a lot of people apply the greatness to that of what Vanilla WoW was. So let's hope that Blizzard has a more hands-off approach when it comes to the social structure of vanilla servers. With WoW Classic, hopefully it'll be more as classic as it possibly can be. I want to hear in the comments below if this video helped convince you guys to maybe try Classic WoW or get excited for Classic WoW, whether you used to play it or never played it before. In order to get Classic WoW, all you need is a subscription to World of Warcraft. So if you subscribe to BFA right now, whether you bought BFA or not, that's all you need in order to start playing Classic. You're not gonna have to buy a whole nother expansion or whole nother anything, whole nother account just to play it. So I feel like it's as convenient as it possibly can be. But you guys let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.